separating the top 5, with Aston Villa making up potentially a final Champions League place there. But Tottenham, having lost their last couple of games, and now 2 points off the lead, with Liverpool and Arsenal chasing down Manchester City. I mean, we talk about maybe Manchester City not looking quite as invincible as they have done, although not actually invincible, over the previous season. I need to be careful. Sit next to Wright, you talk about the Invincibles. But you know, they do feel that over previous seasons, they've had little wobbles within those seasons, but then they've gone on these huge winning runs. Yeah. That hasn't quite happened this time around. Just to sort of wrap up the chat from, to wrap up the chat that we had with Chelsea, you know, they had a couple of defeats in a row, and they come back, they get pegged back by Chelsea. Do they look maybe a bit more vulnerable this season than they have done in previous seasons, where they've reached those like 90 plus points totals?
I think it's tough for us to say now, Kels, because...
Can I just say, qualify this, because you're having a little... this in the break as well.
No, I'm not.
All I'm saying is, when you look at the City side that have dropped a handful of points over a couple of seasons, it's maybe not going to be that this time around. It's going to be a high points total, but not... You know,
but the thing is,
it's not going to come down to losing one game in a season.
But like you said, and rightly said, is that they have got the capability of just going on a 12-game just winning streak. The thing is that in this time, you know, what you've got to do is you've got to try and get something from them. I said, and we did beat them earlier on, we have to beat them at least once if we've got any ambitions of trying to win the league. You have to beat City at least once, because I think that the little problem they've got at the moment now is that they've got Gvardiol on the left with Kovacic and Doku, and it's quite a new... They're settling in. I think they're settling in. And I remember when I was watching Wolves, that Wolves done a lot of play diagonal over there because they're not quite on the levels of everybody else yet in what they're doing to understand. And I think that once the left side starts to really understand what's going on, then City will click into a proper gear. And I think that might be... And that's just me, Kels. I think that might be a little bit of oil in the water. But other than that, I think that they're still the ones. They're still the ones, you know. They weren't great.
This is
they weren't great, and they still scored 4 goals.
We're not comparing City to anyone else bar previous Manchester, very recent Manchester City side, because that's the bar that they have set. And I was watching you sort of nodding along to that. They've got Liverpool, Tottenham and Villa coming up in their next 3 games after the international break. By the end of that, they could be well clear at the top of the table and have put a dent in a couple of their title challenges campaigns as well. But I just wonder if maybe they are marginally more vulnerable than they have been. If teams will think, we've got a chance, rather than we've got no chance.
It's a good question. And I think the pattern of their form's been quite interesting, because they started the season really well. 6 wins in a row, all competitions. And they went on a run of 3 defeats in 4. And then before yesterday, they were back on a run of 5 straight wins. And again, all competitions. The interesting thing is the loss of Kevin De Bruyne, because he and Haaland have an outstanding understanding. And when they play together, De Bruyne is able to thread passes through and find Haaland wherever he is, as well as he's done so far this season, and that's how ridiculous a team they are. He would have scored more goals had De Bruyne been playing. And that's given other teams a chance, as you say. Plus that fact, and on these matters I'm going to defer to Rachel here, but Gvardiol, I think, is the lowest profile £77 million defender I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he's come in, there's been a huge amount of money. No one's talking about him. No. And yet, you're right, he's bedding down into a new system. Now, I always saw him as a left-sided centre-half. And when he plays for his country, he plays as a but he's playing on the left at the moment. So, again, how difficult is that? And I think Kelly's right. With that in mind, it gives the opposition maybe just a little bit of a chink of light, in so much as maybe we might have an opportunity to score goals and take the game to City in quite the same way that we haven't done before.
Yeah, I think just to play devil's advocate and counter that, though, I think, firstly, it's very difficult to go from being a left centre-back to left-back. There is an adjustment, but I think the advantage other teams will get will only be for a very short time. I mean, both him and Doku, I think, have started very, very well, considering not many players go to City and are straight in the team and play those significant minutes that they have seen. I do feel that in some ways, almost just that newness of those players, though, in some ways has given Pep an advantage, because I think he knows you need to keep developing, you need to keep adapting systems, you can't be predictable. And I think in some ways, just the way even Doku plays, he's very direct 1v1. He's more of a traditional winger, and he's very difficult to deal with. So in some ways, I can see teams will try and flip that to be something they can try and play on. But I actually think it's a new strength, because a new element of City that we maybe don't typically see.
And you're
can I just
requiring
be
them
fair
to
to
be a bit off
Arsenal
their
as well?
game as well, aren't you, when they turn it?
Just to be fair to Arsenal, De Bruyne comes back later in the season. Jurriën Timber comes back later in the season as well. And Timber looked a fantastic player.
That inverted right side for us, or left side. But like you made that, there was a good point. What I was going to say about that the left side again in respects of Gvardiol and Doku, and again, I had a feeling that while that game was going on, Jack Grealish is going to be coming on soon, because I feel that he does the control. I know that with Doku, and he has started amazingly, and you don't normally see them come in and play that well for City and have such an impact. But like what I've noticed more than anything in the Chelsea game is that they didn't have the control on that left side, and that is why you believe, yeah, Jack Grealish will be probably coming on soon. And that is what I feel teams have to take advantage of, because we know what Doku can go do that way, but he's going to have to learn what's going on this way. And some of the times, you cannot, when you get the ball all the time, you're going to take your man on, because you want to control the ball as well some of the times and bring it back in. And I think that's why Jack Grealish came on again, because they're still trying to find that kind of balance on that side of Doku.
When you're up against the Chelsea side that have the penetration they do, you need someone who can hold the ball up, which is what Grealish did when he came on. I like Doku because he does have that desire when he gets the ball to run at the defenders. There are lots of pieces across the papers on Sunday ahead of the game talking about the new age of the dribbler, the player that comes in and stands the defender up and puts him in a difficult frame of mind. Which way is he going to go? And even if they lose the ball, they're willing to go again. Sterling, Saka, Luis Diaz, and obviously Doku as well. Last weekend before this against, I think it was Bournemouth, 1 goal, 4 assists, the youngest player to do in the Premier League, and he loves it, and he's so young. So I think it is going to have to be the case that you will need, even though there were pieces saying maybe Grealish's place is under threat, actually, Grealish is going to be very important.
Vitally important.
Yeah. And having said all of that with City, they are still the front runners, and they are still the favourites to win the league. If it's not them, who do you think is leading the challenge? You've got Arsenal and Liverpool are a point off. Then you've got Tottenham a couple of points off. Then Villa with 3 points to go. And Villa would be hoping for Champions League football come the end of the season. That what you would imagine would be the top of their ambitions. But are any of the other three well-placed, do you think, to challenge?
I probably think Arsenal and Liverpool right now are in the pole positions to do that. I think Villa are sneaky, just like, I think that Unai is just, you lot get on with it, we just want to get fifth and just go about our business. But like, even them and the run that they're on and how dangerous they looked is good as well. But I think that you probably have to look at Liverpool and Arsenal as the main protagonists in respects of trying to curtail them. We saw what Chelsea done. I think it's going to take an effort from everybody. But what I'm pleased about with Arsenal at the minute is they're not playing great. We've got some injuries like everybody else, but they're getting it done against the teams that you need to get it done against. And this doesn't, like we learned last season, this time of the season where Arsenal were magnificent last season, it doesn't mean anything when you get down there and then City are on their run. You have to be in touch with them. And that's why I don't think people are getting too excited about what's going on with Arsenal at the moment and too negative, because we have to stay in touch. And I think Liverpool, starting to see the shoots with Liverpool, Kells, with the front three looking brilliant. You know, everybody's always talking about the midfield and the holding midfielder. Is that the player what's missing for Liverpool to go where they're going? I think that Van Dijk is back to the Van Dijk we know and love as a great player, and they've gone under the radar in what they're doing, Liverpool. And we know that they've got the experience to be able to mount a challenge and see it off. So you can't write Liverpool off now. What's that? Nine on the spin?
At home.
And the front three look like
this
this.
by 2 or more goals.
2 or more goals.
Yeah.
So they're in that place, man. It's, you know, you want that. You want the team strong going to try and challenge this City team.
They're very similar to City in so much as they're near invincible at home.
Yeah.
And they've got so much firepower. I remember when they bought Gakpo, head of Manchester United, and one or two people thought, why have you bought another forward? But they are a team that if they try one way and it doesn't work, they try another and another and another. Before they find a way through. And there is no defence so far this season that has been able to curtail them. And Salah, he does so much, and the goal involvements are just ridiculous. But it's also the way that it creates goals for other players as well. And already they've got an understanding.
A nice him and Nunes.
He's had some quiet games this season, Mo Salah, until you look at his numbers.
Yeah.
In those games where you say, it's a ridiculous thing to say, but to go, if you take the goals away, it's quite performance.
It's so really ridiculous when people say, yeah, but if you take the goals away, then what are we watching for?
Take the goals and the assists out of the equation. The other side.
Is it all that?
He should just be working in a shop or something if you take the goals and the assists away. But, like, you look at him, and you could see that there's a nice synergy with him and Nunes now. They're actually looking for each other. When you look at them, so you've got Salah, Nunes, Gakpo, Jota, and Diaz. I think they've got 35 goals between them. That's happening. I think the midfield is something that will probably be tested simply because of that player that they say they needed, a Caicedo kind of player, which they tried for. But
Lavia.
Lavia.
At Chelsea.
Lavia.
Right, let me ask you another question.
Go on.
Sorry, Kaz.
Yeah,
no, I'm just going to put my feet up.
It's them guys are going, but you could still maybe win a 1-0. But the defence is so solid, Darren, that you know, like I say with Arsenal when we played, if we scored 1-0, 1-0 to that, I believe that we were going to win the game. And that is why my mind is always built on defence first.
And I know there's no point me asking.
No.
The captain of Scotland.
See, just on that point, it is interesting how you do feel the whole team feels and plays differently when you know that you've got a team that don't let in many goals, that have that structural base. It's kind of fascinating how just knowing that makes the more attacking players and the players that can play with that freedom.
It's like a safety net.
It's like they, for whatever reason, just actually then feel like they can go and show that flair that you need to have in the final third. If players can't feel like they can go and express themselves, it doesn't happen, but it lifts them knowing that behind them,
confidence.
We're solid.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, as we say, is that Liverpool have to play Man City twice this season, the first match of which is at the Etihad after the international break. Arsenal have already... Well, don't start. You sound like Jurgen Klopp now.
I feel sorry for him. But a game of that magnitude, how good it is. You know what I mean? I'd love that to have been in the evening or something, man. Gosh, 12:30.
Okay. But still going to be a great game. It's still going to be an important game.
I hope so, Kel. I know I'm not doing great advertising for the Premier League at the minute.
While Jurgen Klopp was complaining about some of the scheduling, Mikel Arteta was in a much happier mood after their win against Burnley.
Yes, thank you for asking me. VAR was right, the referee was right. Really good decision, really positive from Mikel to speak about that. Yeah, good decision.
Mikel Arteta... loving the referees this week, loving the referees. Unfortunately, I think this is what we're going to call the big Ange effect, because after he came out on Monday night and said, I'm not going to have a go at the referees, this is a difficult job, which is what Mikel Arteta himself said earlier in the season, but not so much after the last game. But look, he's come out, he said, I'm very much in favour of the referees. Now, the only person they've still to win over is Roberto De Zerbi at Brighton, who was not happy with the way that refereeing decisions went. He said, I don't like 80% of them.
80%.
But the interviewer said, well, that's 20%. You do like 80% still a big number.
I do feel
the latest manager to be upset with referees so far this season. We will talk about that and the effect it might have on Tottenham and where their season goes from here. I do like the melodrama. But first of all, the Sarabia goal, talking about hyperbole, you got in touch before the show. We love requests. We don't take them very often. Can we talk about that goal? It's the best goal of the season.
I've always liked permission, Kels.
best to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Absolutely.
But this is, it's just a lovely goal, this, isn't it?
Honestly, one of the most underrated goal, I think, so far this season, let alone last weekend.
It's a beautiful
the technique, the skill, the wherewithal to think about doing that in that moment of the game is outstanding. Goalkeeper has no chance. Defender lunging, doesn't realise he's going to do it. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant goal.
It's the control, but I'm like you. I have no idea about the technical ability to be able to do that, but I always love when the standing foot comes off the floor. That's one of my favourite things to see. I just love it. Yeah.
You know what's great about that goal is that you can see he's done it on purpose in the way that the way he controlled it. Right?
That first touch.
Yeah, you could see he was taking something off the ball. Remember, the ball's bending into him.
Yeah.
It was a really high technical finish, because when you look at him, watch his left leg, he's going to just take everything off of it. Look, he knows exactly what he's doing. Look, where he's... Perfect.
Touch to cushion it is magnificent.
Absolutely perfect. And from here, he could do what he wants. He could have flicked it over. I'm thinking I could flick it over Ben Davies and slide it in the side, because I remember watching a goal what Luis Suarez scored at Anfield against Newcastle, came over and he controlled it on his shoulder, done his knee, went round the goalkeeper. Once you get the first touch right in that area of the penalty box, then you get defenders diving in, goalkeepers have stopped because the touch has finished and killed everybody.
Do you think that's the case? So the defender comes in and... Sorry, we're having a separate conversation.
Sorry. It's like, yeah.
Darren, that was entirely my fault. I went into a little bubble of my own. Carry on, sorry. Sorry, this is very much a show where people like to hear the guests talk, not me reminisce.
Girls, you just went off on your own then. Sorry, Dad. Go on.
That's all right. No, don't worry. I was only about to make the point that when you're a defender, the cushion touch means that even if you come in to try and make the challenge, because you're anticipating the shot straight away, that's it, you're gone. You're out of the picture.
Remember that, the people are hoping, defenders are hoping for a bad touch.
But you're thinking you're going to get, as that ball's come in, you see him run across you and you think you're waiting his touch, because you're thinking, if this is a little bit off, I'm in.
Yeah.
And in worst case, you're thinking, I'm just going to get across, and then if he goes to shoot, I'll block it. That first touch is sublime.
It's beautiful.
You couldn't do anything there. It's just a great goal.
That everybody can enjoy, except Spurs fans, because that's 2 defeats on the bounce now, and 2 defeats in really different ways, but also feels like really damaging ways they've lost those games in terms of just the psyche of the players.
Yes, that would be quite a demoralising one, because especially like obviously the Chelsea one, which in the end Chelsea ran away with it, but and Tottenham started so well in that game, and then everything what people are saying about Tottenham having started so well, if they get a couple of injuries, if this happens, then it goes down to the bare bones, which we saw in the Chelsea game happen, and then obviously him playing that high line, everybody's saying he's playing so. And then he comes against Wolves, start well again, but then, for me, they weren't playing in the same way that they were playing. They were very negative in the way that they were playing out.
But I think it goes back to what you were saying. It's sometimes if you've got a good defence, and that's what So following Spurs, the thing that I've found over recent seasons is that they've not been able to defend, and the reason for that has been the lack of a left-sided centre-half. Since Van der Ven has come in, they've got that assuredness at the back, Udogie at left-back as well, and then you've got the 2 in front, Sarr and Bissouma. So they've got a really good, compact back 7, if you like, with the goalkeeper as well. But with a left-back playing at centre-half in Davis, I'll hand over to you, because you can describe it much better than me.
Yeah, I think you could just tell too. I actually think these results will go in Ange's favour, because I think what it says to the board is...
You need something.
I need more players. Yeah. Because I think on the bench they had 3 players who were 18. And I think Davis and Dyer are both very good players, played many games in the Premier League, really experienced. But it's very clear, and, there's been some narrative to that they're not Ange's choice. Yes. They're not the style of players that he likes to play in those positions, and that happens sometimes. And it's not necessarily that they're bad players; it's just the style he plays requires certain attributes that don't lend themselves so easily to those players.
The thing is, Rach, Darren, is that I think Levy, this January more than any other time, and I know it's very difficult to get really top-end players, he really does have to back Ange with some players. Remember,
so only one player who played at the weekend was signed by Ange Postecoglou. So has he earned the right to go to Daniel Levy and say, I need players?
Absolutely. And what he doesn't want to get into is what he done with Poch. When Poch, after the Champions League, after them finishing second, and Poch he wanted to get some out, he wanted to bring some in, and he wasn't backed. He ended up moving on. Tottenham kind of regressed, and now to the point where, Conte and Mourinho, now Ange is bringing them back he needs to be back.
I think the difference this time around is that if you look at what Andrew's done, you have to. The context for it is that if they were not doing as well, then Kane scoring 17 goals in 11 games for Bayern Munich looks all the more worse.
Yeah.
As things stand, Spurs are doing well, scoring goals. They're in that top four, which nobody expected them to be at the start of the season. And you've got Aston Villa, and I think Aston Villa might actually be the one thing that does, there'll be many things, but that'll be among the things that the hierarchy at Spurs will consider, because they are doing so well and they're within striking distance of the top four. So Spurs have to stay in that picture. And to do that, they've got to have more depth in January.
Yeah, but we're not too worried about them.
No, because the thing is, people are saying things like, oh, they're only 3 points better off and maybe 1